For an orientation, if you turn your page with the page number on the top right, page number on the top right. So we're standing right now on Mill Street, which is the bottom right corner. Now this is kind of confusing because we're rearranging this road. So Mill Street will be coming out right here where the stop sign is, and the tracks will just be going across. There'll be 3 tracks going across this intersection now. The LRT stop is going to be across the street there, across Ottawa Street, which is running east-west. And then we have the art piece at the corner here. This big empty corner near Mill and Ottawa is the first art installation. The second one is just at this triangular piece here, which is actually going to be where the Mill Street and Ottawa intersection is, just to my left here right now, right where the roadway is. So that access is actually going to be closed and rerouted through this loop through here. Does that make sense? Is everyone well oriented?
While people are exploring and thinking of questions, I'm going to introduce Michelle Purchase, and she's a member of our Public Art Advisory Committee, but also an expert in the Mill Street neighborhood and locale, and she's going to share some words with us.
Hi, everybody. This was actually one of the more interesting sites I thought along the line, and originally when I looked at this, I was like, what? Mill Street? Really? What's here? But Mill Street is actually one of the oldest streets in the entire city of Kitchener-Waterloo. I have a map here from 1818, which shows Mill Street. That's the first one. That's on the back of that. Oh yeah, Mill Street and what was now King Street as the 2 oldest streets. Mill Street ran from the Joseph Schneider Mill at the Joseph Schneider House to the Dune Mill down by the Grand River, which has now been realigned. Mill Street doesn't follow, it still goes that way, but it isn't called Mill the entire way. It has a new route. But this section is still one of the oldest streets in the city. In the late 1930s, buses started running from the city, and this was the terminus for the bus. This was considered the edge of the city limits, which is why they have this weird triangle here. So what happened is the buses ended here, and this was their turnaround loop for where the buses went back to the city. And I talked to some of my neighbors who said in the late 40s they took the bus out here because this was the site of the EB farm, market farm. There was orchards and fruit trees and a greenhouse and a whole little area set up here by the Eby family, which was a farm which ran here for, well, since it was originally settled by the Ebys. Benjamin Eby was the first settler. And the weirdest story I read about it was that this was all Eby lands from the late 1800s to the early 1800s, to the early 1900s. Owned by one Eby after another, and Christian Eby, who was here in the late 1800s, there's a little bit of an article on the back of that handout that I passed around, was a healer, or a charmer they called him. He basically ran a healing workshop which came under a lot of scrutiny from local residents who sometimes called him, accused him of practicing witchcraft or being a snake oil salesman. People came out, and if he would do strange things in his barn, strange ceremonies, and try to heal people. I know, I was like, this is super cool. And apparently he was widely known and somewhat feared in his day. He was eccentric, moody, and prone to fits of rage. But it was just a strange story. The other thing about this area was some of my neighbors referred to it as 2 bridges, or their grandparents referred to it as 2 bridges in the early 1900s, and I couldn't verify exactly where the 2 bridges were. One of them apparently went over Schneider's Creek, and one of them was going around over the tracks. This is one of the only sites that actually physically located on one of the original railway tracks, and I have some old aerial photographs here from the 1945 and 1955, and you can see that this triangle is there in 1945, and there was a woodlot, and you can see the orchards. And you can pass that around if you want to see it. But yeah, there's a lot of context and a lot of interesting things that historically went on in this area. Wartime housing that was established 1940s, 1950s after the war. And otherwise, it's some scattered industrial now. Yeah.
Yeah, so a place with great history and a great future as well. If people want to wander closer and get a close-up shot of the actual location, feel free to do so, and then we'll hop back on the bus.
I forgot, if you want more information, the Joseph Schneider House has lots, as does the Mill Street Community Center, and you can find tons in the library online.
Thank you.